Hello, my name is Charlie Lee. I wanted to talk about becoming an online teacher. Just a short introduction about me. I am a teacher at George Washington High School in Philadelphia. I teach IB chemistry, environmental science, and computer science. Here are my two little cats, and there's a picture of me. I love my little cats. Right. When I think about my online educational experience, way back, even in elementary school, middle school, I remember being in front of a computer and just watching all sorts of different stuff, right? I'm 27 years old, and so I grew up with the internet in a lot of different ways. That affords me a lot of advantages when it comes to teaching online school, right? I learned a lot through educational videos since high school, right? Watching a lot of videos on math, right? Learning calculus and all sorts of stuff, right? Um, my brother saw me watching calculus videos in eighth grade, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to learn this?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" Right? I've always found the access to all sorts of online content so easy to find. I'm very familiar with a lot of streaming technologies and just technologies in general, which make online teaching very convenient in a lot of ways, right? Graphics tablets, for example, being able to write on the screen is such a wonderful thing to do, especially when you're teaching. Open Broadcast software, it's a streaming software which allows you to record videos, which is what I'm using right now. I'm familiar with video editing softwares, things like iMovie and all sorts of different stuff like that. 2020 school year, right? Taught a virtual school year, as I believe a lot of different people. And, that was kind of my first experience teaching online. But I did use a lot of technologies before 2020. Things like PhET, things like Google products, so things like Google Classroom, Docs, Slides, Sheets, you name it, right? I used a lot of online simulations that I found, virtual boxes for programming, things like Codio, right, which allowed my students to gain access to, programming in different, with different code, right? So, my online educational experience was wonderful in a lot of ways. When I think about my online teaching skills, and especially when I think about last year, I definitely developed a lot of the online communication and pacing and technology skills that I needed to be successful. I actually found it was a lot easier to give feedback, individualized feedback to my students because I could type so fast, right? And just leaving a comment specifically for which questions and all of that stuff, I normally found really hard because, I was always doing everything on paper. And so switching to online really helped me and helped my students, get the feedback that they really deserve. Pacing was really developed, right? I could, time myself and see how long I was taking to with different lessons. I could record myself beforehand to see if the pacing was fine. I, had a list of my objectives that I really needed to cover. And so all of that stuff really helped my online teaching. And on top of my technology skills, I'm very quick to find answers to different text stuff. My colleagues at school rely on me for a lot of that technology skills, and so I'm very good at troubleshooting things. Some different things that I could improve though are time, right? Just the amount of time that I spent on online teaching. You know, I feel like I could be more effective, right? Um, so for example, when I think about the time I spend, just trying to find some material online for my students, Oftentimes, and it's on me, I get distracted, or, there's some other pressing priority that I have, and it just ends up being, me finding a YouTube video and not really seeing what was actually in it, or what was actually, um, or how effective it really was. Relationship building was also something that I struggled with. I could see all this data, all this feedback that I was giving to my students, but, I really needed to see the person who was behind the screen, and really get to know who they were and just try and figure out, how to best help them, I find that so much easier in person than online, and so that was such a huge struggle for me last year. And finally, just teaching good online habits, right? The students were teaching, the students I was teaching, at least, high school students, well, they were good up to a point, and I couldn't imagine teaching in elementary school, trying to figure out how to engage the students, or keep their engagement and make sure that they don't wander off task too much. And I found that to be the same case even for my high school students, who are supposedly older and supposed to know this stuff. It's just their culture that, hey, if they're online, then there's all this other interesting stuff out there, and they're just going to go and find that. And so, those online habits, I really needed to help drill that down for my students. Right. When I consider different qualities I have of a good online teacher, I feel like I've developed a lot of organizational skills, a lot of flexibility, patience, and passion, right? When it comes to organization, I definitely use a lot of Google products to help keep everything in track. Google Classroom, in particular, is really nice to keep track of all sorts of assignments that my students are handing in, just giving assignments, posting announcements, making sure that, hey, there's videos up for the students, and it's all in a easy access way for students to, customize their own learning. With flexibility, right? I know a lot of students ask me very frequently for lots of videos to help them with specific topics, and so I'm good with recording little videos for specific problems, and that's helpful for the rest of the class if they have the same issue, right? With passion, right? um, I always believed that I love teaching, and so when online school came out, I was trying to, the very first thought that came to my mind was, how can I make this good for my students? How can I make this a net positive in the end? And with enough patience, I was able to really get to a lot of students. I even had students last year who I've had in previous years, and they did better in online school than the brick and mortar was offering them, right? Of course, that wasn't the same for all students, but we can improve on that, right? My dedication and motivation, right? It's so hard to balance, my personal life and being an online teacher, and it's it, in a lot of ways, my priorities kind of get shuffled around a lot, and to the detriment of um, my just being a teacher, right? And so I would love to improve, just structuring a lot of my time, and just making sure that life doesn't try and get in the way too much of me being a teacher. And so when it comes to the challenges of online teaching, definitely a lot of things to consider there, right? Organization and communication, expectations and engagement, transformed pedagogy, right? If we think about what online teaching can be, oh, kitty, don't step on my keyboard. When we think about what online teaching can be, it's very dependent on, what is the image in your head for what it is, right? Growing up, again, I went through high school just learning through videos, and so when I think about the pedagogy for that, I have to make sure that the videos I put out are very to the point, clear, concise, and making sure that they cover all the material that I need, not to ramble or anything. Using the tools I have to my advantage, right? So I have graphics tablets and all of that stuff. And I know a lot of teachers, who I definitely helped, with those tools. And finally, equity, right? Just making sure that every single student has that opportunity to learn, and not just having that opportunity, but really helping students capture those opportunities, um, to be the best student that they can be. So, those are just some of the positives and negatives of online teaching and a little bit about myself. All right, take care.